Unexpected Journey, Memoir of a Siberian Deportee by Juzė Avižienytė-Žukauskiene. Translated from Lithuanian and narrated by Giedrė Kumpikas, niece of the author, and by Isabelle Kumpikas, the sister of the author. Chapter 51. A Terrible Theft. The weather became warmer. The last remnants of snow melted. The steamships came puffing up, the tugboats pulling barges bringing the station salt and flour for the simple mortals, and boxes with American bacon, canned food, and some other things for the chosen ones, that is, the party members and the honored officials. There were set up for them private shops and private restaurants where ordinary mortals had no right to even cross the threshold. While we unloaded the delivered merchandise, and through the slits between the boards we could see the contents, we grew faint just thinking about a drop of some fat. And here there was bacon, which the local inhabitants had never even seen, because they did not raise pigs. They had nothing with which to feed them. Into the emptied barges we loaded grain, while we ourselves didn't even smell the aroma of bread. The workers in the regional center, there was a bakery there, received their ration of baked bread according to their coupons, while we only received 300 grams of flour per worker and 150 grams per dependent children. Stasys and I, and Juozukas, who was going to school, received 750 grams every day. It was not possible to bake bread from this amount of flour. We tried to save, but how could we? In cooking nettle soup, how could I not mix a handful or two of flour? Sometimes I would steam the nettles, would press out the water, and mixing it with some flour, would bake patties. It was very tasty and more filling than watery soup. At times we succeeded in begging and obtaining a liter of milk from the old residents. The price was 15 rubles per liter. Then we had a feast. For night work, they would give an extra supplement of 100 to 200 grams of flour. In this way, we accumulated 2 kilograms of flour, from which I prepared bread dough. In truth, that supplemental ration we received only for unloading the flour of the Regional Cooperative Union at night from the barges. The sacks with flour were unloaded in the Zukauskiene territory, since there was no room at their base, and they left one girl to guard it. Having unloaded sacks from the evening through the night, she became very hungry. Not being able to stand it, she ripped open slightly the corners of a couple of sacks and milked out about 2 kilograms of flour. Having eaten about a handful of dry flour, she decided to go to someone of the inhabitants and ask them to bake some bread. Since our hata stood the closest and on the shore of the river itself, the girl came running to me and asked me to bake some bread. Fine, here, I have a little cup of leaven mixed for myself already. I'll add yours and I'll bake it. But mine is rye flour, explained the girl as if justifying herself. Ours is rye also. It will come out quite well. Come around noon, it'll be ready, I shouted after the running girl. From that mixture came out a couple of small loaves like little bowls. At noon, the girl came to get her bread. Didn't they bring you anything to eat? I asked. Nothing. Who will bring me anything? And she greedily grabbed and started eating the little fragrant and still warm loaf. With that, I poured her some tea of dried black currants, without sugar, of course. As soon as she had devoured one loaf, she took the other one away with her. The following day she came running up again and again from the same kerchief, which she untied from her head, and in which she had 3 or 4 double handfuls of flour, asked me to bake some bread. I can't, little one. I'm not baking for myself. I haven't saved up any flour, and from yours there's not enough to bake. It's not even worth heating the stove for one little patty. By the way, what's your name? Fonya, answered the girl and asked me to lend her a pot to heat some water to wash her sweaty shirt and dusty blouse. I lent it to her and went to work. She made a small bonfire on the river bank. She was heating the water and was washing. There was no soap. In its place, she used river mud. When I returned, I found the chugun, the cast iron pot with a pointy bottom, placed by the door, but I did not see her anymore. After a couple of days, I received a summons to go to the militia. I went. I was received by the chief in person. He asked, "Do you know Bolobanova for a long time?" "I don't know him at all. I have never met him." This was the name of a superior of a distant region. I had already heard about him. "Not him, but her, the girl," said the chief sternly. "A girl? I don't know anyone by that name." "How so? You baked bread for her," stated the chief with angry derision. "Ah, so the girl who 2 days ago asked me to bake a small loaf of bread is Bolobanova. I didn't ask her last name. I met her only twice all in all. The first day I baked her some bread, but the second day I refused because I had not saved up any flour of my own. And for those couple of handfuls which she had brought, I didn't want to bother or heat the stove. She told me her name was Fonya, but I did not know her last name." I explained, but the chief said, "Do you know what a good-for-nothing she is? She's not 18 yet, and she is so immoral already." I did not understand the connection between her immorality and my baked bread. "She's a thief. She stole flour. She was left to guard it, and she steals." "Yes, but she had not eaten. It seems to me that here the superiors are also to blame, who left the girl on guard duty, who had been dragging sacks from the barges almost until morning, and no one relieved her for 48 hours, and no one inquired if she had eaten anything. You know yourselves that no one has anything to spare. Whatever they have is barely enough for themselves. The store is also empty. Besides, they only sell to their own workers, and at that, only bread for coupons and salt once a month." I would have told him a lot more about work, order, and the condition of the workers, but he cut me off angrily, almost threateningly. "Ah, you justify stealing." I did not inquire, nor did I know from where the girl had gotten the flour. I thought they had given it to her for work. "It is difficult to believe that you would not know how much flour a worker gets for 2 work days." The chief interrupted me with irony. I did not answer anything, although my chest was boiling with the desire to say much more. Yes, I knew that a Soviet worker had the right to buy, according to ration coupons, 600 grams of rye flour for 2 days' work. After 3 weeks, there was a trial. I had to attend as a witness. Again, the same questions and the same answers from me. But here, one of the 3 people's counsels asked such a question. Did it not occur to the witness from where the defendant obtained such an amount of flour? It did not. If that girl had brought a gold wristwatch, I would really have thought it was stolen. But 2 kilograms, and I doubt that there was so much, of flour, it seems to me that a Soviet worker can obtain it in a legitimate fashion. The other counselors and the judge glanced at me, then at the author of the unfortunate question. They were embarrassed to say aloud and in public that a Soviet worker cannot earn so much flour in a legitimate fashion. The judge, glancing angrily at the questioner and at me, stated sternly, "Witness Zukauskiene, sit down." And here was the judgment of the court. For stealing government bread, F. Bolobanova is sentenced to 8 years of loss of liberty. And so in Siberia, or perhaps also in the entire Soviet Union, the price of bread was greater than liberty or even life. The front was rolling towards the west. Even the skeptics did not doubt that the Red Army was moving forward. But the end of the war was not in sight. The people, we, the deportees, and the majority of the locals barely managed to ward off starvation. There was nothing in the stores, neither food nor clothes. One could only buy diluted alcohol, matches, and on rare occasions some sort of footwear, and even that with an allotment. And who could get that? Actually, that diluted alcohol called whiskey was sold freely at 156 rubles a liter. Who could buy it? No one bought it either for the liter or by the half liter, but only some workers would once in a while buy 100 grams for rubles they had scraped together with great difficulty. It was really bad with clothing. The workers who worked in the grain storage rooms would sometimes swipe an empty sack and would sew themselves a pair of pants or a little skirt. There was no dye anywhere, so the local women would process. They would wrap tree bast around cloth, soak it for a long time, later simmer it in a pot. Soak the cloth in that brownish liquid and simmer it again for a long time. The cloth would take on an enduring brown color, but the sacks were stamped with indelible dye, and the process did not color it. Even though they were faint, they still remained noticeable. But the superiors made believe they did not notice. It was not a kilogram of bread, for whose theft the penalty was long years of imprisonment. A naked person could not go to work. A sack or two could be written off for patches. The weather became warmer. Our hopes revived that perhaps we would be able to say that we would go back to our country. In the garden, a little plot of potatoes and vegetables was already growing. Towards autumn, we hoped, just like the old contingent, to have a little additional food of our own. In the summer, there was no work in the storehouses. The grain had been taken away, the storehouses washed clean, and sometimes a group of us women would break away from the hay mowing and repairs and would hurry into the taiga to pick berries. No one dared to go by herself, first, so as not to encounter a bear, secondly, not to get lost. There always had to be a leader and a sunny day. The leader knew the spots very well, where black and red currants grew, and in the fall, cranberries. We dried the berries, but the local women knew how to soak the black currants in such a way that they would last until the frost, and the ones frozen later would last them sparingly throughout the winter. Here, no one knew anything about the making of preserves, since there was no sugar.